Hey guys, this is Zishan from UltimateOffTimes.com. Today we are going to talk about 10 best solo games on Steam. Now, let's get started off with number 1. Doom is a first-person shooter game developed by ID Software and published by Bethesda Softworks. Players take on the role of an unnamed space marine known as the Doom Slayer as he battles demonic forces from hell unleashed by the Union Aerospace Corporation within their Mars energy mining facility. The gameplay is about the faster pace with more open-ended stages reminiscent of the original 2 games. Then Doom 3's slower survival horror style. It also includes environment traversal, character enhancements, and the ability to carry out glory kills. As the combat system emphasizes momentum and speed, the game lets players do moves such as double jumps and ledge climbs throughout levels of industrial and corporate areas of a Union Aerospace Corporation research facility on Mars and later groups of hell. The strategy is known as push-forward fighting. It prohibits players from hiding behind barriers or resting to replenish health while playing as the Doom Slayer. Instead, players obtain health and armor pickups by killing foes. Glory Kills is a new melee execution system. After dealing enough damage to an adversary, the game will highlight it and allow the player to perform a short and brutal melee takedown, rewarding the player with some health recovery. The fights also necessitate the development of simple tactics by the player. As the game becomes more difficult, the player must use the benefits of fight areas and their bonuses more wisely. They must also pick which adversary must be eliminated first and how to travel around the battlefield. The game includes a wide armory of weaponry that players can accumulate and freely switch throughout the game with no reloading. Recurring series weaponry, such as the Super Shotgun and the BFG 9000, also appear. The BFG has a modest capacity for ammunition yet is incredibly powerful. The chainsaw has been resurrected as a special-use weapon that requires fuel but may be utilized to instantly chop through adversaries and supply the player with a larger-than-normal drop of ammunition. Many foes from the original game return, including the Revenant, Pinky, Mancubus, and Cyberdemon have been redesigned. Doom's campaign was designed to last at least 13 hours, and the Ultra Nightmare difficulty level includes permadeath, which means that the save game is lost when the player dies. In May 2016, it was released worldwide for Windows, PlayStation 4, and Xbox One. A Nintendo Switch port was co-developed with Panic Button and launched in November 2017, with a Google Stadia version following in August 2020. Next, over at number 2, we have Dishonored. Dishonored is an action-adventure game released in 2012 by Bethesda Softworks and developed by Arcane Studios. Dishonored is set in the fictional, plague-ridden industrial city of Dunwall and tells the story of Corvo Attano, the Empress of the Isle's bodyguard. He is falsely accused of her death and forced to become an assassin to exact revenge on those who conspired against him. The Loyalists, a resistance force, strive to retake Dunwall, and the Outsider, a powerful creature that imbues Corvo with magical skills, aids Corvo in his mission. The game environment is divided into self-contained, mission-focused zones that allow for different paths of exploration in terms of in-game movement and powers. Between missions, the player is transported to the Hound Pit's bar. Corvo's player character can interact with his comrades, receive mission briefings and alternate objectives, and convert recovered loot into new equipment and upgrades. Loading ports, royal estates, impoverished streets, and a bathhouse are all in-game locations. The player can save their progress at any time, and there is a checkpoint save mechanism in the game. During the fighting, saving is disabled. The game contains 4 difficulty levels that affect the effectiveness of magical potions for health and mana and adversaries' awareness, damage delivered, and reaction. Health regeneration is feasible in a simple setting. Dishonored includes role-playing game aspects, including the opportunity to upgrade powers and make moral decisions with non-linear consequences. Co-creative designer Harvey Smith provided an example of a non-lethal circumstance. The player completed a side mission for a character in exchange for that character kidnapping and enslaving 2 of Corvo's targets. There are numerous ways to investigate and reach targets in each task, instead of distinct paths focused on a specific gameplay style, such as hacking or stealth. Movement across an exploration of areas is meant to support the player character's abilities. Dishonored was first launched in October 2012 for Microsoft Windows, PlayStation 3, and Xbox 360 and was later in August 2015 published on PlayStation 4 and Xbox One. Next, over at number 3, we have The Witcher 3 Wild Hunt. The Witcher 3 Wild Hunt is an action-adventure game released in 2015 by the Polish developer CD Projekt Red. The games are based on Andrzej Sapkowski's fantasy novel series. The game is set in a fictional fantasy setting inspired by Slavic folklore. Players take control of Geralt of Rivia, a hired monster slayer known as a Witcher, as he searches for his adoptive daughter, who is fleeing the otherworldly wild hunt. Players utilize weapons and magic to combat the game's many perils, interact with non-player characters, and complete tasks to earn experience points and gold, which can improve Geralt's powers and purchase items. The game's tale features 3 different endings, which are influenced by the player's decisions at important points in the narrative. Players take control of Geralt of Rivia, a Witcher who slays monsters. Geralt can walk, run, roll, dodge, jump, climb, and swim. He carries several weapons, including bombs, a crossbow, 2 swords, 1 steel, and 1 silver. The steel sword is primarily employed to kill humans, while the silver sword is more efficient against monsters and beasts. Players can freely draw, switch, and sheath their swords. There are 2 types of attacks: light attacks that are quick but weak, and heavy attacks that are slow but powerful. With their swords, players can block and counter opponent assaults. Blades have a limited lifespan and must be repaired regularly. Geralt has 5 magical abilities at his disposal, in addition to physical attacks: Ard, Axii, Igni, Uden, and Quen. Ard causes Geralt to launch a telekinetic blast. Axii confuses foes. Igni burns them, Iden slows them down, and Quen provides players with a temporary shield. The signs need endurance and cannot be used indefinitely. Mutagens can be used to boost Geralt's magical power. When struck by opponents, Geralt loses health, though armor can help mitigate health loss. Meditation and eatables such as food and potions are used to recover health. Ciri, Geralt's adopted daughter who can teleport short distances, is occasionally controlled by players. The Witcher 3 Wild Hunt was released in May 2015 for Microsoft Windows, PlayStation 4, and Xbox One, with a Nintendo Switch version in October 2019 and PlayStation 5 and Xbox Series X and S versions following in 2022. Next, over at number 4, we have The Elder Scrolls v Skyrim. The Elder Scrolls v Skyrim is an action-playing video game published by Bethesda Softworks and developed by Bethesda Game Studios. The game takes place in Skyrim, Tamriel's northernmost province, 200 years after the events of Oblivion. Its major plot revolves around the player's character, the Dragonborn, and their quest to battle Alduin the Planet Eater, a dragon prophesied to destroy the world. The player completes tasks and develops the character through improving skills throughout the game. Skyrim is an open-world setting with wilderness stretches, dungeons, caves, cities, towns, fortresses, and villages that the player can freely traverse. Players can move faster around the game world by riding horses, buying a ride from a city stable, or using a fast travel mechanism that allows them to warp to previously explored areas. Non-player characters populate the world where players can converse with them, marry predetermined ones, or participate in fatal or non-lethal combat. As in earlier games in the series, they were killing specific NPCs that could make certain quests or items inaccessible. Crimes such as murder and theft earn the player a reward, tracked separately in each of Skyrim's 9 holds. If a guard apprehends the player, they can pay off their bounty with gold, serve jail time, or resist arrest, resulting in combat. If the crime is minor, it is also easy to bribe or persuade guards. NPCs frequently offer additional side tasks to the player. Some have altered parameters depending on surrounding new locations. Some NPCs befriended or hired by the player may function as companions, accompanying and assisting the player in combat. The Elder Scrolls v Skyrim video game is the 5th installment in the Elder Scrolls series. After The Elder Scrolls IV Oblivion in 2006, it was published globally on November 11, 2011, for Microsoft Windows, PlayStation 3, and Xbox 360. Next, over at number 5, we have Metro Last Light. Metro Last Light is the first-person shooter video game featuring post-apocalyptic themes and survival horror features. The tale follows Artyom, a teenage soldier living in the Moscow metro after a horrific nuclear war. In this sequel to the computer game Metro 2033, tasked with locating the enigmatic Dark Ones, Artyom must go to various metro system regions, the surface filled with radiated gas, and battle different groups and mutant monsters. The game improves on the gameplay mechanics of 2033 and adds things like weapon customization. Metro Last Light, a first-person shooter, includes a range of weaponry, some fictitious and some based on real weapons that the player can employ in combat. The game's protagonist, Artyom, can also use his melee weapon to kill an enemy immediately. Artyom possesses 3 weapon slots. Players are free to use any weapon they want in these slots. Players' secondary weapons include throwing knives, incendiary grenades, and hand grenades. Mutants lack guns and attack the player in swarms, while humans fight with the same armaments as the player. Instead of firing most human foes, the player can knock them unconscious or kill them with stealth, because adversaries are ineffective at identifying the player character in the dark. Gamers can get an edge by turning off oil lamps and light bulbs. Ammunition is a scarce and necessary commodity in the post-apocalyptic world. Military-grade ammo is utilized as cash before the apocalypse. By employing lower-quality bullets created within the metros, players might avoid consuming all of the valuable money. Scavenging is an important component of gameplay due to the scarcity of ammunition, where the player can find spare ammunition, guns, and other goods by looting corpses and the environment. The bullets will help purchase weapon accessories such as scopes and silencers, which boost weapon efficiency. It was created by the Ukrainian firm 4A Games and released in May 2013 by Deep Silver for Microsoft Windows, PlayStation 3, and Xbox 360. Next, over at number 6, we have the Talos Principle. The Talos Principle is a puzzle-based narrative game where the plot of the game is philosophical. It comes from Greek mythology's Talos, a giant mechanical man who defended Europa in Crete from pirates and invaders. The player assumes the role of a robot with what appears to be greenery, desert, and stone ruins coexist with futuristic technology in these landscapes. The puzzles demand the player to navigate enclosed regions and overcome obstacles to acquire tetramino-shaped sigils. These include computer-controlled drones that detonate if they get too close to the player, killing them, and wall-mounted turrets that shoot down the player if they approach too tight. If the player dies, they are reset at the beginning of the specific puzzle. Portable jammer units, which can also disrupt force field walls that obstruct the player's passage, can be used to disable drones and turrets. New problem elements become available when the player accumulates sigils and solves additional puzzles. The player can activate light-based switches using portable crystalline refractors, boxes, among other things, allow the player to climb to higher levels or to obstruct the route of drones, while big fans can rocket the player or other objects across the problem. Later, the player receives access to a gadget that can generate a time recording of their activities, allowing them to interact with this recording to complete tasks such as having the clone stand atop a switch for some time to keep it activated. The Talos Principle is a puzzle video game released in 2014 by Devolver Digital and developed by Crote in December 2014. It was published concurrently on Linux, Mac OS X, and Windows. It was launched in May 2015 for Android, October 2015 for PlayStation, the 4th of October 2017 for iOS, August 2018 for Xbox One, and December 2019 for Nintendo Switch. Next, over at number 7, we have Subnautica. Unknown Worlds Entertainment developed and published Subnautica, an open-world survival action-adventure computer game. After their spaceship, the Aurora, crashes on the land of the alien planet 4546b, players are free to explore the ocean. To live, the player must gather resources and face animals. Subnautica is a survival action-adventure game performed in the first person in an open-world environment. Players can gather resources, build tools, bases, and submersibles, and engage with the planet's wildlife. Most of the game takes place underwater, with 2 explorable islands and a day and night cycle that influences vision. The player must manage their diminishing health, hunger, thirst, and oxygen levels in survival mode. If the player dies, they are reborn, but certain items from their inventory are gone. The gameplay in freedom mode is nearly identical to that in survival mode, but without hunger and thirst. Permadeath is included in the gameplay on hardcore mode. If the player dies, they do not relive, and their data is erased. All diminishing attributes, such as health and thirst, are erased in creative mode. All blueprints are enabled, and the player can construct without using resources. There are submersibles, a stasis rifle, a sea glide, a mobile vehicle bay, and a propulsion cannon that do not require an energy source. Subnautica was launched in early access in December 2014 for Microsoft Windows, June 2015 for Mac OS, and May 2016 for Xbox One. It was launched from early access in January 2018 for Microsoft Windows and Mac OS, with Xbox One and PlayStation 4 versions following in December 2018. In May 2021, Nintendo Switch, PlayStation 5, and Xbox Series X and S were released. Next, over at number 8, we have Stardew Valley. Stardew Valley is an open simulation role-playing video game that allows players to grow crops, raise livestock, mine, and forage, sell and socialize with the villagers, and marry and have children. It also supports online multiplayer with up to 3 additional players where farming simulation games based on the Harvest Moon video game series. At the beginning of the game, players construct a character who inherits a plot of land in a little house once held by their grandfather in the small town of Pelican Town. Players can choose from various farm kings, each with its theme and advantages and disadvantages. The countryside is initially covered with stones, trees, stumps, and weeds, and players must labor to clear them to restart the farm, tending to crops and cattle to create cash and grow the farm's structures and facilities. Players may also interact with the town's non-player characters, including engaging in romances with them. This can conclude in marriage, with the NPC assisting the player's character in farming. Players can also fish, cook, create, and explore randomly generated tunnels containing resources and ores to mine and animals to battle. Players can perform tasks to acquire extra money or certain collections of materials called bundles to renovate the town's community center or pay particular amounts of money to complete Jojo Mart bundles. They complete bundles that grant players numerous goodies such as seeds and tools. Completing multiple bundles unlocks new places and game dynamics, such as the desert. The player can eat food to gain boosts useful in particular activities and situations. Food also replenishes health and energy, allowing the player to do more tasks in a given day. The game employs a simplified calendar, with each year consisting of 4 28-day months representing each season, which influences which crops may be cultivated and which activities are profitable. Later in the game, players can rebuild a greenhouse and an island capable of growing any product regardless of the season. Stardew Valley was released for Microsoft Windows in February 2016, and it has since been ported to a variety of additional computer, console, and mobile platforms. Next, over at number 9, we have Portal 2. Portal 2 is a first-person action game, not a shooter. The gameplay revolves around environmental riddles, such as how to go from A to B while avoiding C. Players must determine where to fire portals, how to jump through them, and at what velocity and angle. The player's character may be injured by weapons, turrets, and other items, and there is some animated violence against hostile robots. Although the emphasis is on problem-solving, Portal 2 begins with the player waking up in the Aperture Laboratories, the first game's human behavior research center, and rapidly discovering that things have gone wild. Aperture is a shambles. Without GLADOS, Portal 1's female AI enemy, the facility is in a state of decay to keep things running. Walls are collapsing, test chambers are failing, and every room the player enters is littered with damaged windows, natural vegetation, and broken machinery. Players are introduced to Wheatley, a stammering, motor-mouthed droid voiced by Stephen Merchant, and reacquainted with the portal gun, which produces interconnecting portals capable of bending distances and physics in their environment. In the early stages of the game, Portal 2 is a puzzle platform video game released in 2011 by Valve for Windows, Mac OS X, Linux, PlayStation 3, and Xbox 360. Finally, over at number 10, we have Factorio. Factorio is a simulation game for construction and management created by the Czech studio Woob Software. The game follows an engineer who crash lands on an alien planet and must extract materials and construction industry to build a rocket. However, because the game is a sandbox, players can continue playing after the tale concludes. There are both single-player and multiplayer modes in the game. Factorio is a resource-gathering focused construction and management simulation game featuring real-time strategy and survival features with influences from the Minecraft mods Buildcraft and Industrial Craft. The player survives by locating and harvesting resources to manufacture various tools and machines, creating more advanced materials, and allowing the player to proceed to more sophisticated technologies and devices as the player continues developing and operating their automated factory-style system, which automates the mining, shipping, processing, and assembly of resources and goods. The game progresses. Players investigate advanced technologies that allow them to build new structures, products, and improvements, beginning with basic automation and progressing to oil refining, robots, and powered exoskeletons. The game was announced in 2013 through an Indiegogo crowdfunding effort and would be released on the 14th of August 2020 for Microsoft Windows, Mac OS, and Linux after a 4-year early access period. Thanks for watching. I hope you enjoy this video, so just click the like button below, and also to watch more videos from us, just subscribe to Ultimate of Times and also join our forum to build a gaming community.